درود به مردم شریف ایران. من شهریار افشار هستم، میزبان شما در برنامه Politics 365. هر هفته ما یک گفتگوی جدید با شخصیت‌های برجسته سیاست، حقوق بشر، تجارت، تکنولوژی و اکتیویست‌های فعال در سراسر دنیا به توجه شما میرسانیم. اگر مایل هستید ما خوشحال میشیم پیامتون رو دریافت کنیم با تماس با 858 444 6506 یا info@politics365.com. با امید ایران آزاد بریم دنبال برنامه امروز. Welcome, Scott Wiener from the United States Commission for International Religious Freedom to Politics 365. It's wonderful to have you here. Such an important commission, such important work. Scott, if you could do us a favor, tell us a little bit about yourself. First, your background, how did you end up in this role? And then we'll get into what the commission's work and also the reports that reference Iran in different ways that the commission has worked on. Let me just translate real quickly. امروز یه آقای دکتر سکات وینر در واشنگتن دی سی به برنامه ما پیوستن و ایشون نماینده یک ارگانیزیشن هستن در واشنگتن دی سی به اسم کمیسیون آزادی religious حزب و religious freedom really آزادی freedom در واشنگتن دی سی. ایشون دکترم هستن، تدریس هم میکنن در واشنگتن دی سی، اما امروز در نماینده این کمیسیون هستن. Scott, tell us about yourself and we'll go from there.
خیلی ممنون به صاحب خیر. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. So I'm a supervisory policy analyst at the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. I broadly oversee our research on Africa and the Middle East, but I focus in my own research capacity on the Arabian Peninsula and Iran. USERF as a commission is an independent bipartisan advisory commission created by Congress to monitor and report on religious freedom conditions around the world. We have 9 commissioners appointed by the President of the United States and the majority and minority leadership of the House of Representatives and Senate. And they're supported by a professional staff of 20 who are nonpartisan, and so I'm included among that staff. So we report on and monitor religious freedom conditions according to international standards like the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We hold hearings and events here in Washington, D.C., but also outside. We conduct fact-finding trips around the world. And we also publish an annual report, which was just released last week, our most recent report.
Let me quickly summarize a lot of great work. ایشون فرمودن که این کمیسیون 9 تا عضو داره و رئیس جمهور آمریکا این اعضا را به اصطلاح تعیین میکنه و با کنگره آمریکا هم کار میکنن. پس یک کمیسیون نان پاردیزن هستن، نه ریپابلیکن نه دموکرات. فقط کارشون اینه که در این مورد آزادی religious freedom سراسر دنیا ریپورت بنویسن، تهیه کنن و به اصطلاح تشریح بدن این موضوع رو. و I'm trying to think what else I can translate in all of the good stuff you said. I think that's enough. People will have to kind of summarize themselves. Tell us a little bit about the 2 reports that we talked about. ایشون این 2 تا report تهیه کردن که یکیشون در مورد sexual violence and gender-based violence و یه annual report که هر سال این کمیشن تشریح میکنه. اما این report ها جفتشون یه اشاره به حوادثی که در ایران افتاده این چند ماه اخیر میکنن و ایشون در این 2 تا report الان به ما گزارش میدن. Go ahead, Scott.
So there are 2 recent reports related to Iran that we've put out. The first is about sexual and gender-based violence that the government of Iran is deploying against peaceful protesters who are protesting in favor of freedom of religion or belief. If people in Iran don't believe that it's necessary for either they themselves or for women in general to cover their hair. That's a religious belief and it's protected under international law. So for any government to say that people don't have that individual right is a violation of freedom of religion or belief. And it's especially heinous when the government is using a pattern of sexual and gender-based violence to target people and religious people in particular. There are unique harms that they're suffering. So our report looks at a lot of the scattered articles and reports that have come out about what's happening in Iran related to sexual and gender-based violence and consolidates them into one place to show that the government of Iran is deliberately and systematically using sexual and gender-based violence to weaponize religious ideas of purity and modesty and gender hierarchy against women in Iran. Not only women, but particularly women.
Sure. Thank you. It's very important clarification. So, ایشون فرمودن که آزادی به اصطلاح ایمان، اعتقاد، اینا یه موضوع هستش که در قوانین بین‌المللی ازشون حفاظت میکنن و این موضوع حجاب و حجاب اجباری که ایران استفاده میکنه بر علیه مردم ایران، مخصوصا زنهای ایران، یه کار غیرقانونیه به چشم قوانین بین‌المللی و مخصوصا وقتی این سرکوبی ملت که ما شاهدش بودیم و تجاوزهایی که ازش متاسفانه شاهدش بودیم و دیدیم، شنیدیم، رپورتاش دیدیم و گروه های حقوق بشر درش گزارش نوشتن، اینا همه خب قاعدتا غیرقانونی به چشم قوانین بین‌المللی و این رپورت به اصطلاح توجه ما رو جلب میکنه به اون کارهای غیرقانونی که به چشم بین‌المللی ایران داره انجام میده. Thank you. That's very important because I think a lot of people are focused on, I want to say, obviously the political struggle that is going on in Iran, but it's really clearly an affront to international law and an attack on human rights. And it's so good to hear that there is a commission like yours that is studying this and trying to account and document what's happening and shining a light on it. What do we hope to get from this report? نتیجه این report چیه؟ آتیش چیه؟ به چه هدفی این report تهیه شده؟ What can we expect next?
Sure. So that report was released a few weeks ago, and since then we've published our annual report, which Congress requires from us by May 1st of every year. So you can see a copy of it behind me, and there's a picture of a protest against the government killing of Mahsa Amini, or Jina Amini, right behind me. So our commissioners felt that this was a really critical issue to highlight as it relates to religious freedom. And the report contains our recommendations to the State Department of designations for countries of particular concern, which are those that exhibit systematic, ongoing, and egregious religious freedom violations, and then a special watch list of countries that exhibit generally two of those three. With regards to Iran, our intention is to show that the government is committing those systematic, ongoing, and egregious religious freedom violations, and to elevate some of the comments made by the UN Special Rapporteur on Iran, Javed Rahman, that sexual and gender-based violence, but other issues in Iran may amount to war crimes. This is something the Commission is taking very seriously. And this year, in our Iran chapter for the annual report, we have recommended that the United States government support a UN Security Council referral of the matter of Iran to the International Criminal Court.
Thank you. It's a very important description. So, ایشون فرمودن که این ریپورت سالانه که کمیسیونشون چاپ میکنن و تقدیم میکنن به کنگره آمریکا، عکس مهسا امینی روی این به اصطلاح ریپورت هستش و در اون ریپورت بیشتر توضیح میدن که این به اصطلاح جرمایی که جمهوری اسلامی مقصر بوده در سرکوبی ملت ایران در این چند ماه اخیر، مخصوصا مورد حقوق بشر و تجاوزایی که متاسفانه شاهدش بودیم و ریپورتاژ دیدیم، اینا همه رو به اصطلاح تو این ریپورت تشریح میدن و به کنگره تقدیم میکنن و دارن توصیه میکنن که war crimes that crime am I saying that right? Did I say war crimes correctly, or was it
crimes against humanity?
Crimes against humanity. I'm sorry. I have Ukraine in my mind. So crimes against humanity جرمایی که بر علیه تمام انسانیت ها هستش. واقعا هر جرمی که در ایران اتفاق میفته واقعا یه جرمیه که به تمام انسان ها صدمه میزنه. پس این ریپورت اینو تشریح میده و به اصطلاح یک قدمیه که از نظر قانونی باید اجرا بشه که کنگره این موضوع رو در نظر بگیره. So is it a congressional, now given that the MAHSA Act is also going through Congress for different purposes, but obviously, so the Congress is getting the MAHSA Act and it's going through and getting sponsored from both sides, it looks like, and then you have this report coming. Maybe there's Congressional Research Service reports on it. So what I'm saying is Congress getting is a lot of reports on what's going on in Iran, official reports, not just citizen complaints or constituent outreach, which is very strong, as you can imagine, but official reports from this commission, from the findings of the MAHSA Act, maybe Congressional Research Service is doing more reports on it, I don't know. What will Congress do with all this, especially your report?
So our report provides an update on conditions for religious freedom. So that's some of the issues we've spoken about, but also religious minorities. So what's happening with the Baha'i community, the confiscation of Baha'i properties in Iran, attacks on members of the Christian community, the Ghanabadi Sufi community, and many others, including non-believers and non-theists who fall within freedom of religion or belief. So our report documents what's happening, but also makes recommendations. So in addition to recommending that Iran be designated a country of particular concern and recommending an ICC referral, we also recommend that Congress continue to impose sanctions on high-ranking and mid-ranking individuals who are complicit in some of these religious freedom violations. We urge the Treasury to expand and expedite the issuing of general licenses which allow for American technology that allows for communication about religious ideas and coordination on peaceful protest to occur more easily within Iran, and for Congress to continue to highlight a lot of the prisoner cases. We keep a database of prisoners globally that just passed 2,000 entries, and unfortunately, many of our entries are from Iran. So we keep Congress updated on some of those, and our hope is that Congress will take those recommendations and be able to make a positive difference. And as you mentioned, this is something where there is bipartisan support. And as you know, we're in a very hyper-partisan environment at the moment. So it is heartening, perhaps one small silver lining, that we're seeing very strong support on religious freedom in Iran from across the political spectrum.
Thank you. Fantastic. That's really good to hear, especially about the specific recommendations. So سوال اول این بود که خب ما از کنگره چه جوابی میتونیم انتظار داشته باشیم و ایشون فرمودن که دو سه تا توصیه‌های خیلی مهم میتونیم ریپورت کردن. یکی که به اصطلاح آمار تمام زندانیایی که زندانی سیاسی که در دنیا حکومت‌های مختلف گروگان گرفتن این افرادو، اکثر خیلی نمره خیلی بالایی از اون 2000 نفر بیشترشون ایرانی هن. یک و دو توصیه میکنن که تحریم‌های اقتصادی بر علیه اشخاصی که دستی داشتن در سرکوبی ملت اونا رو اسم میبرن، اون توصیه رو میکنن به طبق قانون آمریکا. I'm trying to think about the third suggestion, or not the recommendation. There was first the sanctioning the key people, identifying the people in jail. Is it a referral to the International Criminal Court? That's also so.
And then sanctions licenses that
for technology. Right. Thank you. So ایشون فرمودن که این موضوع هم توصیه میکنن که کنگره و دولت آمریکا با همکاری International Criminal Court ایران رو به اصطلاح مقصر بدونه. اما یکی از مهمترین شاخه‌های ریپورت که دولت آمریکا و اوفک سانکشنزایی، یه تحریمایی که بر علیه ایران هستش، یه اجازه‌هایی بدن که از نظر تکنولوژی بتونن مردم ایران دسترسی به اینترنت و مخابرات‌های ارتباطی داشته باشن. خیلی مهمه اون، واقعا نمیشه گفت همه سانکشنز ها بعد از این شاخه وقتی به مردم ایران کمک میکنه خب خیلی چیز مثبتیه. So what happens? I mean, you've made these reports. Is there going to be a congressional hearing? Is there? How does the Congress receive your report, or do they just receive hundreds of reports? Does it go to the Foreign Relations Committee? What happens?
So we do transmit the report to Congress, but we also hold hearings, including one kind of mid-2022 that we did on Iran, or perhaps a bit later once the protests had started. We've just held a hearing on transnational repression, which discussed some of the ways that Iran's government is pursuing religious dissidents and religious minorities outside of Iran. And unfortunately, we've seen several reports of this, including the attempted abduction of an Iranian-American journalist based in Brooklyn, New York. So this is something that's happening on US soil, and I think that's deeply concerning to us and to members of Congress as well. So there are a number of different ways that we get the message across, but luckily, there's a lot of interest in this on Capitol Hill as well as within the administration. So we have really strong conversations on these issues, again, across the political spectrum.
Thank you. No, ایشون گفتن یکی از کارهایی که میکنن اینه که کنگره کمیته های مختلف کنگره هیرینگ دارن، جلسه‌ای اجرا میکنن که به اصطلاح این ریپورت های کمیسیون رو دریافت کنن، مصاحبه کنن، سوال کنن از کارشناسا و به اصطلاح موضوع رو بیشتر بجورن و به اصطلاح امیدوارم به نتیجه های برسونن. یکی از شاخه‌های ریپورت و تو این هیرینگ ها که پیش اومده، مجلس هایی که کمیته کنگره برگزار کرده، اینی که جوری که جمهوری اسلامی دنبال افراد ایرانیای مقیم خارج میره و اونایی که شاید یه اکتیویست بودن، مخصوصا مهدی علی نژاد که در بروکلند به اصطلاح جمهوری اسلامی به اصطلاح هدف داشت که ایشونو دستگیر کنه یا برگرده یا بکشه و یه جوری به اصطلاح دیگه همه اون حوادث رو ما شاهدش بودیم. Scott, in the last 2 or 3 minutes, is there anything the community can do to support what you're doing? I want to make sure they look at your website and go to your website to look at the report. I expect it only comes in English, not in Farsi, but to the extent that we can bring some attention to it in Farsi, that would be great. But are there any hearings coming up in later 2023? Any aspects that the community can help? It would be great to know how we can help.
So our website is www.uscirf.gov, where we have a copy of the report. This year's report hasn't been translated into Persian, but I believe in previous years we do have some translations in Persian. Given the high profile of Iran, I'm sure that we'll be continuing to report and to do events on Iran. And in terms of how the community can help with any indications or reports of religious freedom violations, we're always happy to receive information. We speak with people across the United States and around the world about situations that they're experiencing either personally or that their families are experiencing. And so we're very happy to track that and then be able to report on that honestly. Because we're independent of the administration, we can speak unflinchingly, and in times we can be critical. So we've called for opening up the Lautenberg program, which provides a designated path of resettlement for Iranian religious minorities, even though that's been stalled in both Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. So we have the opportunity to cut through some of the bureaucracy that exists in Washington. And so we would encourage people who share our commitment to elevating religious freedom as a norm and practice to continue to send us information, and we're happy to pass that along to the fullest extent that we're able.
Thank you, Scott. سوال این بود که مردم ایران چیکار میتونن بکنن که از کار ایشون حمایت بکنن و ایشون گفتن میتونن به وبسایتشون مراجعه کنن، میتونن هر ریپورتی، هر گزارشی که از نظر حقوق بشر یا sexual violence یا هر به اصطلاح انتقادی که دارن از جمهوری اسلامی میتونن که مورد به کار کمیشن هستش، میتونن به کمیشن وبسایت مراجعه کنن در سالهای پیش ریپورت های این سالانه که چاپ میشه به فارسی هم چاپ شده بود. حالا امیدوارم شاید در آتیه به فارسی هم دوباره چاپ بشه. اما وبسایت ایشون بهترین راهی که میتونین کمیشن، یعنی میتونین ایرانی‌ها میتونن با کارهای این کمیشن آشنا بشن و گزارش بدن. مجددا Scott, the website domain is what exactly?
It's www.uscirf.gov.
Thank you so much. Dr. Scott Wiener from the United States Commission for International Religious Freedom. Such important work. So glad you're focusing on Iran. So glad to see Mahsa Amini's face on that report that went to Congress. Couldn't do enough to bring more attention to it. So thank you so much. I hope you'll come back to join us soon.
Thank you so much.